Welcome to another OCD video on analog consoles, this time around the Nt Mini Noir. And I'm going to, in this video, kind of speed things up a bit and have my presets already entered and saved in and just show you what they look like. And like for the Nintendo and Genesis, I'll go ahead and dial in a 5x scale just to show the difference there. But for the most part, these cores are going to be already preset, and I'll just show you what they are and how they look. And I'll also mention any issues with the cores for video, because some of the cores have a few weird bugs and quirks, some of which we can get around, which I have, and some of which cannot be gotten around. Also, I did not do settings for the really weird offbeat stuff like Game Duck, Channel F. Basically, I went down from the top and did all the way through and including the Intellivision. So that's the major consoles at any rate. And this is based on the jailbreak firmware 6.5. So if you're watching this video after a newer firmware has been released that fixes a few bugs, you don't have to worry about commenting that as a heads up. The text file that is included in the description will include any updates like that with corrected settings based on those updates. And they will also include other options like if you don't want to use integer scaling, if you want to use fill the screen type graphics vertically anyway. And it will include options for 720p and 480p for those that want to use those. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to do a little menu setting changes here. System, menu options, highlight style. I like to go with throb, it's easier on my eyes. Highlight color, I like anthocyanin. It's my favorite color. Font, I'm just going to leave it default. You can, of course, load custom fonts if you want, but really this font looks fine to me. So I've tried a couple and they're neat and all, but I actually prefer this default font. Let's see, we want that, get rid of that, and we do want high-res file browser because I have Smoke Monster packs for every core in here, and the ones that he didn't have packs for, I downloaded a full set of ROMs so I could see how much it would take up on the SD card. And it only takes up 20 gigabytes, including all of the various collections that T-Stogie made. So you're looking at being able to get a 32 gigabyte SD card. I would recommend getting a SanDisk, the fastest one they make, where it's got a red and black tone on the cover of it. So, and they're even at their fastest speed, it's cheap. You can get them for like $20 on Amazon. So that's really all you need. You'll have like 10 gigabytes to spare, which is more than enough for, adding in future, homebrews and hacks. All right, startup options. We definitely want to lower the boot sequence to around +1, and we want to get rid of this menu intro because it sucks. I hate it, and so do a lot of other people. There we go. LED options, K-Pro Rainbow, and I go ahead and max it out. The reason I do is the pinhole on the front of the Noir doesn't make the LED all that noticeable unless you have the console above your eyes because it fires downward, and then you'll be able to see it more clearly. But if the console is below your eyes, it's not that noticeable, so really it doesn't make a whole lot of difference how bright it is. And we'll go ahead and save those options. And back out, and we'll go ahead and get started on the cores. Starting with the Nintendo, of course. So here is the Smoke Monster pack with some, and I added in my own res sorted games as 0 file there. Press start, and first we're going to go to the audio because there's some stuff there that we'll need to know about. Channel levels. Now here I have these set to My Life in Gaming's MD Fourier analysis, where they measured it against an actual front-loader unmodded Nintendo console. So these 5 channels are dialed in as close as possible to an original console. And then I have a VRC6 dialed into my personal preference at 82 for the 2 squares and 78 for the sawtooth. This is not scientifically measured. I sort of played it by ear, and this sounded pretty good to me. Your mileage may vary. You may prefer different settings, so I'm not saying this is like perfect. Until we get a tool that can actually measure it, you kind of have to play it by ear like this. And VRC6 is going to mainly be, most people's favorite expansion audio game. That is Akumajo Densetsu. And that is the Castlevania 3 game in Japan that has the extra expansion audio, these 3 VRC6 channels. Okay, so let's back out, go to video. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that, since I prefer to use integer scaling on the vertical, and there's a twofold benefit to this. Number one is you get nice sharp pixels on the vertical axis, which really makes a difference in my opinion. And two, you want to use vertical scaling, integer scaling, for scan lines. So if you prefer scan lines, you have to do this, and you have to set the vertical to an integer scale. Now we leave the H interpolation active because we are, on most of these cores, going to be correcting for display aspect ratio. I believe the only core we don't, there's Game Boy and Game Boy Color we don't, because we're going to use the handheld display aspect ratio, which is square pixels. And then also on the Sega Genesis, I prefer square pixels on the 320 mode, but not the 256 mode, and you'll see how that works. So now we go to width and height, and this is the settings for display aspect correction at 4x scale. Now if you notice, here I have 1169 instead of 1170. And the reason for that is the horizontal interpolation most of the time will stretch it out to 1170 anyway. I actually measured it in a screen grab. In fact, for every core I tested this just to make sure I had it perfectly dialed in with even pixel count. And in this case, I had to subtract 1 and then shift the horizontal position over by 1 to compensate for that. And it also, I believe, slightly improves interpolation. It makes it more evenly dispersed amongst all the pixels. It just looks a little bit better, in my opinion. So let's have a look at a game with these settings at 4x scale. Go to my favorites, and we'll load up Legend of Zelda first. And I'll show you in here why I prefer 4x scale for Zelda, and Metroid is another one that I prefer it for. Now if you can see here on the bottom row there, you can see both rows of bushes, and that to me just satisfies my OCD. I love seeing all the graphics on this game. It doesn't have any like overscan garbage or scrolling buffered in. It just works, with full active graphics. And also I'm going to show the dungeon to show another reason why I like it. So I'll go to level 1. And here again you can see that, let me go ahead and pause it. You can see that the bottom wall here shows the bricks just like the sides and top do. And it just looks so much better when you're playing. It's just a much better experience. Now some games, of course, you may not want to see all that because they'll have garbage down there, and I'll show you 5x scale for that. But for now, let me show you Metroid for similar reasons. And as you can see here, you can see the full complete 2 rows on the bottom and top. And once again, there's no overscan garbage, so this game is another excellent candidate for 4x scale. Alright, with that done, now we'll go ahead and do 5x scale. I'll go ahead and dial it in for you. And I recommend it for Castlevania because that game has built-in letterboxing, and so nothing gets cut off when you're playing the game, and so it makes for a great candidate for 5x scale. So let's go ahead and use our hotkey to get to the video width and height, and we're going to change the vertical to a 5x scale, and then we'll adjust the horizontal and centering to compensate. So the horizontal is going to be 1461. Probably could have gotten there faster pressing start a couple of times. My apologies. All right, 1461, and the horizontal is 11, vertical is 50. So we'll change that. All right, and this is perfectly centered 5x scale. And if we back out, you can see it looks nice and sharp on the vertical, and it's big. You can see how much is cut off on that bottom and top row there. This is actually more than a CRT cuts off, so I'm not really a fan of it unless you're playing a game like Castlevania. So let's go ahead and try that out. And you can see here nothing is cut off on the HUD display at top, and nothing is cut off on the bottom. So this is an excellent game for 5x scale. Well, there's a money bag there, but I usually miss it. Alright, so you get the idea. That is the Nintendo. And again, I do have in there recommended settings for 4.5x, and that's where you just stretch the active graphics vertically to fill the screen. But again, keep in mind for those kind of scales, you can't really use scan lines. They just look ugly and awful. So that's another reason, like I say, why I don't recommend using full screen stretches like that. Alright, well, I found that it's better to power the system off to go back to the next core, because I noticed, at least with my capture card, it introduces artifacts if I try to just back off into the next core. And this is weird, because sometimes it will reset to like a lower resolution. It's kind of a glitch. Whoops. Back out of that. Yes. See here, it reset to a 480p. That's a glitch. It should not be doing that because I have it set to 1080p. So let's go ahead and bring it back. There we go. Try to save it again. I don't know why it does that. All right. Go to the next core, which is the Atari 2600. There we go. And we'll load a game, probably Pitfall. I'd say Pitfall. There's Pitfall. And this is already set for perfect display aspect correction. I'm not any good at this game. The Atari was the 2600 was the first console I had as a kid. Technically, Pong was the first one, but I don't remember it. I was too young to remember it. But I do remember playing Atari many a time. I'm terrible at this. Anyway, so there you go for that. Just for fun. Alright, let me drop down just so there's no noise. Let's go ahead and check out the video settings that I recommend for this. Scalars, of course, once again, you're disabling the interpolation for integer scaling. And on here, I have 1371 by 1190. And if you notice, it's not 1200, it's 1190. And that's because there's an actual like bug or quirk with the internal scaler. It's based on 238 lines instead of 240, but the labels still think it should be based on 240, and so they don't line up. So at this 5x scale, 238 times 5 is 1190. If it were 240 times 5, then it would be 1200. So that's a glitch that I reported on the GitHub, and hopefully down the road it will be corrected, but if not, no big deal, because we can use these manual compensation values to compensate for it. So that's my recommendation for the Atari. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hold the power button and hard reset back to the menu. Let's try that again. It doesn't want to turn on. Come on. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, cores. Next one up is Atari 7800. Takes a little bit for it to load. There we go. Let's see, for 7800, I don't know. Just let me back out. Oh, that's right, we got Commando Fix, which plays the music when it normally doesn't work when you just load the ROM. I'll go ahead and pause it here just so you can see this is already fully set correctly for our display aspect ratio correction. So let's check it out. Press start, video, scalars, we've got disable vertical checked. And here is the settings, and this is for a 4x scale with aspect correction. And this is what I recommend. Actually, let's see. Yeah, just want to double check. Yeah, that is correct. So that's my recommendation in there. And again, in the text file, I have options for full screen and 720p and 480p. All right, well, let's go ahead and hard power off again. Hopefully it'll work this time. Holding it down. Check the LED. Good, it's working. So it should be up here. There we go. And next is going to be the Sega Genesis. This was a beast to dial in because it includes the overscan in the width and height, and that really messed with me trying to get, properly dialed in settings, but I got around it. Okay, so press start, video, and here, let's see, scalars. Here there is a setting for 320 mode and 256 mode. I prefer to use square pixels for 320 mode. It just looks better. Most of the games just look considerably better that way. The planets look round in like Thunder Force 3, Thunder Force 2, Phantasy Star 2. The moon in the background of Bloodlines looks correct this way. I do understand there's occasionally, like I believe the sprites in Bloodlines actually account for aspect correction. And so I'll show you how to do that when we go to 5x scale. But first I just wanted to show 4x of my settings for it. And these are my settings for 4x. So 1360 for square pixels on 320, 256 is dialed in for aspect correction, and 4x scale. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. I just want to point out, if you want 320 to be properly aspect corrected, what you do is you check this box here, and then it would automatically align 320 with 256, so you don't have to figure out what the numbers should be. It just automatically aligns both of them. So all you would do is use the 256 values with this checked here, and it will automatically correct 320 for display aspect ratio if you desire that. If you do that, however, you're going to have to go back to the scalars and re-enable interpolation, so you'd uncheck that. All right, let's go ahead and load a game. We'll load a 320 game first, of course. And I'll just show you in Thunder Force 3 why I prefer square pixels for 320 mode. And you can see here the planets and stars are all perfectly circular. which is why I like it so much in square pixel mode. Alright, let me show you another example real quick. Let's see, Phantasy Star 2. And here again, the planets are perfectly circular, so I just prefer it that way. Plus, you get the added benefit of square pixels, so you get nice, sharp graphics on both the horizontal and vertical. But let's back out. Actually, I'll go ahead and just... No, I want to back out. And show a 256 mode game. I should have done that. What would be a good one? I guess Valus 3. Some of these 256 mode games have various menus in 320 mode, but the main gameplay is in 256 mode. So this part here is in 256 mode, and it is aspect corrected, so this is how it would look on a CRT. I completed this game back in the day, but boy was it hard. Alright, so now let's go ahead and do the 5x scale settings. Alright, so video, width and height, and we're going to change this to 1700 for 5x scale. We're going to change this to 1553. See what's closest. I guess that's closest. Actually, there was one even closer. My bad. All right, horizontal is going to be 16. And change that to 5x scale, and vertical position is going to be 50. That's perfectly centered right there. Back out. Actually, I could have spammed select button again. Anytime you want to back out from that, just spam the select button and you'll get right back to the game. So this is 5x scale. At any rate, there you go. There's the Sega Genesis, and again, refer to the text file for more information. And hard power back on. There we go. Cores. Next up is the Sega Master System. Now, what's great about the Sega Master System is it is 192 vertical, which means we can max it out on the vertical as high as we can go for integer scaling. And we'll press start, go to video, and again, scalars, make sure disable V is checked. And here is the 5x scale with aspect correction, 1461 by 1200 with a centering of 11 by 55. So let's go ahead and check out a game. We'll load up Phantasy Star. if we go to the menu screen here, we can see that there's nothing cut off. And also, if you notice here, I have cropped the overscan on the top and bottom. So if you want to know how to do that, very simple. Go to cropping, and it's going to be 22 and 26. Spam select, get out of that. Let's check out a dungeon real quick. And you can see it's perfectly cropped off. Alright, so that is the Sega Master System. Turn it back on. Alright, next up, Game Gear. Now on Game Gear, I decided to go with the actual physical screen display aspect ratio of the handheld, which is how it would look if you actually had a Game Gear. I do know that internally it uses the Sega Master System / Genesis / Super Nintendo 256 mode for display aspect correction, but the actual screen on the Game Gear handheld uses a 4:3 correction, and I will show you what that looks like now. And press start, video, scalars, we've got once again V interpolation disabled. And this is the value that I recommend for the Sega Master System. Game Gear. This is 1343, horizontal position 0, height of 1008, which is 7x, and vertical position of 45. So let's check this out in an actual game. Let's see, USA. Let's try Sonic Chaos, for example. And there is a quirk about this particular core that I need to describe. And I'll show it. That sounds awful because the Game Gear is awful with voices. Okay, so the problem here is the Game Gear core actually blacks out the top scan line, the top line of graphics. So what you end up getting is like one short of what the actual graphics should look like, the active graphics. And this threw me off, and I had a real hard time trying to figure out what was going on until I finally sussed it out, and it was that. So hopefully that will get fixed in the future, where you can see all of the graphics, including the top scan line. For now, I have adjusted the centering to allow for the future potential fix to reveal it. And if that doesn't work out, I'll just update the text file accordingly. So no big deal either way. But that is Game Gear for you. So let me go ahead and do the hard power off and turn it back on again. All right, next up, Colecovision. And we'll go ahead and press start. Let's see if there's any quirks about the Colecovision. I don't see any in my notes. It's another 256 by 192, just like the Sega Master System. So we get the benefit of maxing it out on a vertical integer. So once again, your scalar is going to have disable V checked. And here are the values. 1461 by 1200, that's a 5x scale with aspect correction. So let's check out a game with that. Let's see, Colecovision. I don't know what to, maybe Frogger or something. I think I went too far. Yes, I did. There we go. I'll just play a little of it. A little bit of graphic corruption, it probably just loaded badly. Oh, come on. Alright, well, you get the idea. Let me hard power off again. Power it back on. There we go. So that is Colecovision. Next up, going to be one of my personal favorite cores because you get to do integer on both axes and have it be correctly, have it be correct for handheld display aspect ratio. Cores, and we'll do Game Boy Color. Now, Game Boy and Game Boy Color are going to be the exact same value, so what you see in the Game Boy Color is going to be the same stuff you put in Game Boy. And oh, look at that, we got some graphical corruption there. Let me back out and see if I can reset that. It's weird how it randomly has that issue. Let's try again. There we go, clean. Alright, so press start, video, scalars, and you see I have both H and V disabled. I have them both checked because the handheld actually uses square pixels. So that's fantastic news for the best possible video quality. And you see here I have 7x vertical and 7x horizontal. And these are the values: 0 position, 38 vertical. So let's have a look at a game with that. Let's see, Link's Awakening would be a good one. That's one of my personal all-time favorites. Let's see. Oh, it's Legend of Zelda. I keep forgetting you have to have the Legend of Zelda part. There it is. I'll just like get to the house and then stop there. Maybe I'll like go outside too. But as you can see, it looks fantastic. That's why I love these particular cores so much. Alright, hard powering off, powering back on. And let's see, what's next? That was Game Boy. Alright, well, the last one I have done is the Intellivision. And there is another quirk that I have to detail with that one. Alright, press start, video, and these are my recommended settings for 5x scale, 1371 by 960. And the quirk about the Intellivision core is the internal scaler has a mismatch with the labeling. It is based on 240 lines instead of 192. So the label says 4x, but in reality it's actually 5x. And I've also reported that on the GitHub, so hopefully that will get fixed. So even though this says 4x, it's actually 5x because of that mismatch between the labeling and the internal scaler using 240 lines instead of 192 lines. So even though it says 4x, trust me, it's actually 5x. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. And Intellivision, oh, I gotta do it. I gotta go to the IntelliVoice and load up one of the... It just cracks me up because I used to have an Intellivision back in the day with the IntelliVoice, and I played this game for many an hour. And, oh, I forgot to do something. To back out, press start. We need to see if... I forget where it is, actually. Core options, I think it's under that. Use IntelliVoice. I forgot to do that, so let's go ahead and back out and reload the game.
Mattel Electronics presents B-17 Bomber.
Now, I don't believe we can actually play this game because it's not one of the ones that's compatible. I think requires more buttons than are available. I'm not sure. I think, like I say, I believe it's one of the games that may not be actually fully compatible. But don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. So let's go back. Let's try something that might work. I think Beauty and the Beast works just fine. Oh, I just barely avoided that one. I get up there. There we go. I didn't mean to actually fall all the way down, but oh well. So, that takes care of that. And like I say, these other straggler cores down here, I will eventually get to. I just have to do more research. As I said, they're not on the pin8.com website that I use that has pixel aspect ratio and the subsequent display aspect ratio for it. So these cores I haven't gotten to yet, and it's going to take a long time. Like I say, a couple of weeks, but I've got some mods I need to take care of for some customers. But there you go for the main consoles. And again, just reference the text file for a quick cheat sheet, and again, it will have stuff for full screen stretching and 720p and 40p modes. And again, it will be regularly updated as new firmwares come out, or like say if I get to these other straggler consoles, I will get those dialed in and added to the text file. So I appreciate you all being patient and waiting for me to get these done. Like I say, it takes me about 6 hours a day for the past 2 weeks to get these all dialed in as best as humanly possible. And I thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate your support. So have fun with the NT Mini Noir. Catch you later.